then it should be easier, is the theory.
I just want to start this podcast by saying, is it weird to say that you're nervous on your own podcast?
Is it weird to say that after 60 podcasts, you're finally doing a podcast with yourself?
But this means I actually have to speak this time, right?
Yep. Yep. Everyone that listens to our podcast, Igor, is now going to hear what your voice sounds like.
Yay!
Luckily, it doesn't sound like a nail on blackboard.
No.
So.
I'm a quiet person, really. Aren't I, Jack?
Yes. Which is great, because it means I get to talk lots.
It's a good balance.
But it's yin and yang, that's for sure.
Well, I think we should start off by saying where we are at the minute, because this isn't our normal digs, is it?
Our super dramatic setup.
Which is pretty.
Which is the gallery room, which is the old flower store at the mill in France.
Yep.
So we've been here for a couple of days with Natalie. We podcasted with Natalie yesterday, artist, maker and host.
Yes.
/ organiser. /
superwoman.
Yeah. Trying to get a lot done in not a lot of time. Yeah. And achieving it, to be fair, which is pretty cool. So, the We Are Makers podcast. A lot of people have asked us to podcast between yourself and myself, Kate. So...
Yeah, it's kind of like any podcast we do, everyone starts asking us questions and we're like, this is not our podcast, it's yours.
But today it's our podcast.
It is our podcast, so we get to tell a little bit about our story, right?
Yep.
It's a long one.
It's a long one. We definitely won't cover it all today.
No, we're flying home at, what time? We're flying home
at 5, so we need to leave here like 1:30.
And we were going to do this podcast yesterday, but again, we put it off. It's not important, right?
3 or 4 months in a row put it off.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've done a lot in the last 3 or 4 months, so I guess it just adds.
Oh, it's easy to just find other things to be busy with, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, who is Kate Lenny?
Who am I? I'd always say I was quite a shy person when I was younger, but I'd say I've grown a lot since, university. I think before then I was still quite shy, but I think university kind of brought out on me. I've always been a creative person. Since I was young, my mum would tell me that, I'd get the pens out and start drawing all over her curtains that cost her an absolute fortune.
Your mum still tells that story often.
Yes, so I think maybe, you could tell I was a creative person since then. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I've always kind of art, interior design, product design. I've never enjoyed maths or science or any of those subjects really. That's never been my strength, but that's okay.
That's fine, aye.
And I think school, and we've referred to this many times in several podcasts, is school kind of makes you want to go one way when you actually want to go the other way. It's like, I wouldn't say they hone in on your strengths. You have to do everything.
Yeah.
But I quite liked 6th year because you kind of got to choose what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
Were you the same?
It was also that thing where like, once you chose it in 6th year, you usually had a good rapport with, I certainly did, with certain teachers who understood, like art teachers are obviously fighting arts corner, math teachers are obviously fighting maths teachers' corners, PE teachers couldn't find anything else to do. So the PE teachers, no, I'm kidding on. But by 6th year, they're like, right, you actually want to do this, and you want to make a point of doing this. It's not like arts and certainly CDT, and I was, obviously, and we'll talk about that later, more the techie side of things. They are kind of side subjects until you get to 6th year.
Yeah.
And then when you do start giving them, or when the school system allows you to give them more concentration, you can really make them full-time subjects.
Yeah. I really liked art, and many people say, oh, you don't make money out of art, but, I think maybe that's what put me off doing the art direction, and I was pushed towards more the product design direction. And I love product design, I was good at it. I enjoyed it. Really liked my teacher. She kind of pushed me in that direction. And, I thought, well, maybe that's what I want to do with my life. So that's where university came in. I think everyone says you have to go to university, you have to go to university. That's always the next step. So that's the step that I took, but I'm quite happy that I did because that's how I met you. But what was I going to say?
We were talking about going into university.
Yeah. What was your portfolio like? Because mine was very art-based.
Nearly non-existent.
Really?
Yeah, I'd done 2 or 3 projects, and I spoke to, so we both went to product design. I spoke to Ian Lambert, who was the head of product design at Napier, and Ian Lambert had taught my product design teacher.
Oh, really?
Only like 4 months before. Did I never tell you this?
No.
Right, so Ian Lambert had taught Mr. Tams, old John Tams, for Dalkeith High School. So we just started talking about John Tams.
That's how you get in.
Pretty much. Well, actually, no, it's actually worse than that. I got in on a sympathy vote. So John Tams had just been on, this is fucking wild actually. John Tams had just been on his honeymoon after getting married in France, in Paris, I think it was. Or Italy, might have been Italy actually. And a car veered off the road towards his pregnant wife and he threw himself in front of the car. So John Tams was in a coma. A forced coma, and me and Ian Lambert got talking about that, and then that was our half-hour meeting kind of done. And he flicked through my portfolio at the end, and
was that you're a good fit?
Yeah, we got on really well, and then the letter of acceptance came through. Then that was it. Both away to uni.
Who was my lecturer again?
Richard Firth.
Richard, yeah. That's who interviewed me, and obviously my portfolio is very art-based. You know, I did advanced higher art, so that was a big portion of my portfolio. And I think that course was he was very arty himself though, wasn't he? He was very much into...
He had a lot of like contracts with like concept sketches for game design and stuff, didn't he? He was very like front-end product design rather than back-end product design.
So I think he quite liked my arty side, so I think that's how I get in. But I think our group at university was actually quite good.
I think so.
I think there was quite a mixture of different people. But going back to me being quite shy, I think university did bring that sort of side of me out, as you put it.
Why do you think it did?
I think it's just being surrounded by people who are interested in what you're interested in. You know, at school,
like-minded people.
Yeah, I think at school you're kind of forced to be friends or forced to be with people who, I mean, not forced, it's just the way school is, but I guess I didn't feel comfortable, maybe. I think university allowed me to be more me.
Yeah, it's location-based school, isn't it? Like, I don't really talk to anyone from school. In fact, I don't think to talk to anybody. Nobody from school. Because it's all location-based. It's not like interest-based, whereas at least at university it's interest-based.
Yeah.
So there's a good thing about university, coming from two people who have done nothing but slander university for the past few months.
No, it is a good thing, and I would say to people, yeah, go, because, you know, why not? I mean, if you feel that's what you want to do it. But there is other opportunities out there with like apprenticeships, or like your brother, for example, who now didn't know what he wanted to do, and he found an apprenticeship and he absolutely loves it and feels no need to go to university. And having practical skills, you know, I learnt a lot from university, but I'm not sure it was practical skills as such. No.
Even the open uni stuff, like the open uni stuff I'm doing at the moment, taking a break from it at the moment because this is enough. This is enough, and that's okay. But I mean, university definitely gives you the social side of it, but if you are, maybe that's not what you want to do, or you've got another social group, or you are already self-organised, self-motivated, like the open uni stuff's been wicked. You know, since finishing our degree, I've done another degree with the open uni and I'm about to finish the masters when I get back round to it. That's a whole other option. You don't have to go to, and it's a lot cheaper. I mean, I know obviously SAS, we got paid to go to uni, they paid our fees, but like open uni is a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I know.
A lot cheaper.
But I think the social side of university is quite good. You learn a lot, and obviously you get to meet people like we did. One of my favourite things about university, apart from, us meeting,
Right.
was
Here's my favourite thing, and it wasn't meeting you. Nice, Kate. Nice.
was Norway.
10 minutes in and slandered already. Norway.
Oh, yes.
Aye, so tell people about Norway. So I was actually speaking to someone last night. I was speaking to Court Bags about trying to get back over to Norway. And speaking to a couple of people in Sweden that we featured in the first or second edition. So Kate and I spent a lot of time in the Nordic countries.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people know that.
No. I don't know what it is about like Norway, but we were given several different countries like Australia, Spain, was there France?
Yeah, France. Was there one in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
There was one in China.
Yeah, there was. Quite a few guys went to China.
Yeah, I think a group of 5 or 6 went to China, didn't they?
I thought it was a bit too much out of my comfort zone. I was like, I could do with Norway, it's only a wee small flight. Because I'm quite a home bird, I like to be at home.
Yeah, Kate's decision on where to go wasn't, I don't think it was primarily driven by, but there was certainly a large factor of
I
how
wasn't going to
long's
go
the
at
flight.
all.
I know you weren't.
But I kind of...
Or you could, that's the other thing you could do an industry stint, couldn't you?
you could.
Because that's what I was going to do. I was going to go to I4 product design and do an industry stint rather than go away.
But at university, like when this project was coming up, we got a talk from previous students who had been to these certain countries, and for some reason Norway just seemed to tick the
Workshops,
boxes.
man. It was workshops. I think we were both at a time where we felt, I don't want this to sound cocky, but we felt we'd learnt, not everything we had to know, but we'd learnt enough that we then had to back it up with physical skills.
Yeah, I agree.
Like we've always been quite hands-on people, renovating the house, and your dad's obviously a builder, you've been around that your whole life. We'd always helped out at the farm, we'd always done whatever we could, even in the early days. My mum's dad having to dig a yard when I was young, we grew up, yourself and myself and dad doing DIY work on the house. Like we all grew up around people that done stuff, whether that was their main job or not, but they done stuff. And I think when they started talking about the workshops,
what was his name again? He was a nice guy.
Neil.
We
nearly rented a flat off him in Forfeit, didn't we?
Did he not move to Norway after that?
Norway or the Netherlands? He moved somewhere.
Whatever it was.
He started his own design agency, I think.
I don't know, but he did really well. And everything about Norway, just like when he was explaining the workshops. So the workshops over there, you could do metalwork, ceramics, pottery, glass.
The workshops were the size of our whole university corridor.
It was just like a playground for a creative person.
And their health and safety sign-off was fantastic.
Yeah, it was like, if you hurt yourself, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Sign your life away.
Yeah.
But
all the material was there.
Yeah.
Like you could request specialist material, like oak boarding or anything like that. But a lot of it was donated from like local sawmills, like Seconds and stuff. I remember you could go out and buy your own stuff, but you never had to.
No, it was just amazing. But like for anyone thinking about going or traveling or going overseas, I was not. Like I was like, no, I'm not going.
You were
that
not
that
for
just
it.
does not suit me. But I kind of thought, no, this is a good opportunity. I'm going to take it because we could go together, which was really nice. And yeah, the workshops were just incredible, and everybody was really inviting when we got there. And it was crazy because everybody in our class was like almost like 10 years older than us. Did you not find that?
Yeah, they definitely seem to be. No, I don't know. I know Norway's got obviously the national service, so I don't know if people came out of high school, done national service then, like Amund, and then went there, or some people just went and got jobs and then came back to university. But they were definitely older. Yeah, there was very few people our age because we were 21 when we went there.
Yeah.
21?
I was just turning 21.
Yeah. I don't think, maybe not 10 years over. There was definitely some that were at least 10 years over. But I think the majority of people would have been 25, 26 when we were there. A good 5 years older.
Yeah. But yeah, some of the projects they gave us were incredible. Like you could build whatever, you could take your sketch and your idea and make it a physical thing.
Aye.
Like I made a lamp.
Aye.
It's like
cracking wee lamp,
It was like a storyboard round it. It was acrylic and they had a laser cutter, and I could create the full thing. And at the end of the project, they had like a whole massive exhibition where like everybody had to, it was really professional. You had to have your card and your big board with like how you came around the project, your picture, and you had to have like little, cards to give away. And they, champagne, everything. I was just like, what is this? This is amazing.
Even that first one where we had to work with a company.
Yes.
You worked with Made.com, I worked with Cold Steel.
Yeah, you had to reach out to a company and say, I'm with this university, I want to do this project, would you be interested in helping me, guide me, give me some feedback on my project? Which was really
That's quite a key skill when you think about it.
Yeah.
Like reaching out to a company.
Which is what we're doing now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing you explained there, you take it from a sketch to an actual physical product that sells or doesn't sell or at least gets exhibited. Like, that's exactly what we're doing now.
Yes.
Whereas at Napier, now they did have a workshop, and it's not to bash them. There's obviously different health and safety involved in the UK, and there's a myriad of different things and funding and all sorts. But like, I felt we were capped at the first 30% of that in a UK university, whereas the next 70% is really where you do the learning.
Yeah.
Like, you can make anything work in a sketch.
Yeah, and I think we took full advantage of being in Norway when we were there, didn't we?
Oh, aye.
I mean, your project, what did you do? You did axes.
I done the axes.
And you did a camera made of wood.
Yeah, I done.
Tell them
that was a light project. That's the one that you done your light for.
Yeah.
And then I flipped it on its head, and rather than the output of light, I done the intake of light. So I made a pinhole camera.
It's cool.
I don't have any of the pictures for that. I got a bunch of them developed.
I bet it's on your Behance profile.
Probably. Behance should remember that.
Behance? I still got it.
I bet it is.
Yeah. I just, yes.
And then the axe, done like a run of 12 of them or something. Sold them all. And that was the first time you'd done like a product that you're like, shit, I can sell this. This is a thing. This is now a business.
Yeah, and you've got tattoos just to remind you of your
Remind
time.
up. I lucked out there with Einar, because Einar was one of the lecturers. He was like a wicked good knife maker, and he had a forge there that nobody ever used, and I was interested in it. And Einar was like, right, cool, you've got 6 months to learn how to put blacksmith stuff.
That was super cool. You were really in your element there, weren't you?
Aye.
And don't forget, like the first project we did as everybody getting to know each other was to build those go-karts.
Oh yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah, they gave you 30 metres of tube. 30 metres of tube? I think it was 30 metres of tube. A welder, 3 bicycle wheels, and anything else you could find lying about the workshop, and you had to build a 3-wheel go-kart.
How many days?
It's like a week, I think.
Was it?
Yeah, you start on a Monday and you race on the Friday. They built a ramp, so they were like gravity go-karts, they were unpowered. Yeah. They were cool.
And what I loved about the students there was like everybody just wanted to speak English when we were there. Like
we felt very welcome straight away.
Yeah. But anyway, aside from that, Norway was a real turning point for me and the way I wanted to continue my design career as such. Like I always wanted to, going from the furniture that I designed when I was there, I was like, I really like being hands-on. I like taking that sketch to this, and the amount of skills. You really took to that. Yeah. I just using the thing afterwards. Yeah, there's something amazing that you can do that with your hands. Mm-hmm. And so that was a big turning point for me, Norway, for sure. Because that was a year before final year, was it? Yeah, third year. It was the last 6 months of first year. Yeah. Because it was like, we flew out like 3rd or 4th of January. Mm-hmm. I remember it was like right after New Year. Mm-hmm. And then flew back. I think you flew back like late May, and then I went away for 2 weeks with Amin and flew back mid-June, late June, after my birthday. Or I flew back like on my birthday or something like that. So yeah, that was the year before, and then we went into our final year, and we had to, obviously your final year is a big project where you have to like write an essay, and that essay has to back up whatever project you're doing, right? Yeah, it was like your self-directed research had to be put into your dissertation, which was quite kind of good, because I hear a lot of people that have to do a dissertation about one thing and a project about the other. Yeah. Which seems a bit naff. I had a terrible experience with my essay side though, because I had 3 different substitute teachers that came in at different points, and
If they came in.
yeah, if they came in, and that's what let my score down or my grade down.
That sucks though, doesn't it? Because that's you then relying on someone else.
Yeah. But anyway, so I decided to continue my furniture love and created a piece of furniture for children, all about creativity, connection, and reset. A wee bit about like how I've continued to do We Are Makers, but it was for children, and I really enjoyed like the whole process. There was a lot of students who I think we're just like some people here. I just feel like sometimes we just want to push that boundary a wee bit where I didn't have to create this big piece of furniture, but I wanted to see it. I wanted to see how it worked because
that's where you really learn, isn't it?
That's
where
where
you really
the real
go through the
world
weeds.
is like you take a project from paper and you make it to see how it works. And that's what we both wanted to do. We wanted to push our limits and have something to show at the end of the year that, you know, I could do this full time.
Well, that's it. To me, it's whether it's physical or not, it's nothing more than a sketch unless it's full size.
So
Got in a bit of trouble for that though.
Yeah. We just took up the whole space. You and your motorbike and me with my big piece of furniture. But hey, it stood out, right?
Hi, who were people congregating round when it came to
Exactly.
the final show? It was the full size pieces that they could sit on, that they could see, that they could.
But it allowed me to be like, okay, I've done that first step of doing my first thing, you know, how do I go about, once uni's finished, I don't really want to go and work for somebody else. You know, they would tell us there's only 5 jobs.
3 jobs or something.
3 or 5 jobs.
Whatever it is, it's a low number.
For everybody that's here. And you're like, so we're all trying to fight for the one job.
Aye. So it's like, why have you got 25 people in the studio? Yeah. And then how many different product design courses are there going for a year? What was there like? There was north of 1,000 people at that final show in London from product design degrees. Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, I know there's jobs out there and everybody won't go to the same sort of like...
Everyone won't go strict hardcore product design.
Yeah. But that's what I wanted to do, and I have done it, which was great. Learned a lot from...
You've done your own furniture for 3 years?
3 years. But it's funny because uni doesn't tell you anything about going self-employed.
Nope.
So really...
Aye, there's only 3 jobs, but we're not going to help you try and get self-employed and set up a business because that would be silly.
I mean, I was very lucky in the fact that my parents supported me in what I wanted to do.
Yep.
And I just needed... They live on a farm and they had like an old building that Dad said...
The milking shed, I think it was.
Yeah, it says you can have this space if you want to get some funding to start up your business. You know, I'll help you where I can. So I did a bit of research on like funding for startups, and I looked at Business Gateway, I looked at Princess Trust, and all these different people that can help you. And I went with Princess Trust. And I had to do a business plan. I had to get put up with a mentor who helps you create this business plan and gives you some tips on everything to do with business, self-employment. And I had to do a pitch in front of it's almost like a Dragon's Den style. And I can tell you right now, I am not a public speaker, never have been, don't like it. Pardon me, I have got a lot better.
Definitely, you've got way better.
Yeah. And that was a big thing for me. Like couldn't sleep the night before. I was like, this is like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But actually, deep down, I knew I really wanted it, and I knew my product. I knew what I wanted from it. So I think that helped come through with my pitch, and luckily I got it. Yep. So that was really good. Managed to get some money to get some materials, help with my branding, things like that. And I did that for 3 years.
Yep.
Throughout those 3 years, I remember a lot of my furniture was CNC cut, and I finished it off by hand.
Yep.
And remember we were sat I always wanted a CNC machine because I was taking my products all the way to an hour and a half away to
Yeah, it's a friend. It was an old school friend of my dad's,
Yeah.
Jamie, who owns a company that makes packaging for a lot of their packaging's for MOD, but they had a big CNC machine, and whenever it had downtime, he would always let you know so you could go and do your stuff on it.
Yeah, and after
And he was cutting it for like, as long as you brought the wood, because you were using
Yeah.
higher class wood than packaging wood, obviously, he was cutting it for like buttons.
He was, and it was really great to get me started. But as I was getting along, like, I was really wanting to experiment, and
Yep.
I found that really difficult, and not having like my own machine just to, you know, do a
Work it out yourself.
Exactly. And thanks to you for helping me learn how to CAD and do my own machine. But we're sitting in Florida, we're on holiday,
It was the
and
day we landed in Florida.
yeah, we're searching for
Finally took a holiday.
yeah,
Because I'd worked, a film and a half back to back, 2 films back to back,
yeah,
and then there was a gap. So we finally booked to Florida with your mum and dad. We all went out there, and the day we landed,
yeah.
the CNC machine popped up.
In Glasgow, of all places.
Yeah, like 5-6 miles away from where 15 miles away from where the farm is.
So anyway, I was buzzing the whole holiday, and as soon as we get back, we went to get this machine, and it was somebody that was doing it for guitar bodies or
That's
something.
it. Aye, he'd bought the machine and he'd refurbished it all to do it for guitar bodies.
And it was the most exciting thing ever. Hey, I remember bringing it into the workshop, and it was like a Christmas, like for like 10 years. It was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I remember I was getting all like excited
Giddy.
about it. Yeah, and just like let's just cut something, even if it's a circle.
Yep.
But anyway, that was exciting. And over the years, I built up my workshop. I had like, you bought me for my birthday a massive big laminating
Yeah.
machine.
What was that, your 25th birthday or something?
It was a big chunk of metal, wasn't it?
Yep. Find yourself a partner that buys you industrial machinery for your birthday.
Practical, eh?
Always practical.
So yeah, I built up my workshop, built up my products, was quite proficient in the machine in the end, and
Very proficient in the machine.
loved it. But as always, business is hard. Trying to get your wares out there, I was in a small little part of Scotland trying to share my products with the world, which is incredibly difficult. I had my own website.
You designed them all flat pack so
Yeah.
people could screw them together so you could package them and send them.
Yeah.
Like, despite all of these things.
Yeah. I was obviously on Not in High Street. I was on, don't even know if I went on to Etsy, I can't remember. But I went through the whole like Instagram, trying to go through the whole algorithm and being like, this is just, I was really quite upset, as I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of people are, like, it's just not working. My products are good. It's not the products, it's
No,
just,
it definitely wasn't the products, because whenever the products were in front of
Yeah.
people, they were selling. It
Yeah.
was the reach.
It was a reach. So I did it for about 3 years, and I guess we were living quite separate lives, because we'll go
Yeah.
into your story as well, but you were working down in film in London and I was up in Scotland, and I was like, maybe I just need to go and get a job. Maybe I just need to go and work with somebody and see if I can pick up any skills there or anything that I just don't know by working
Yep.
for myself. And so you said, well, why don't you come and live down south for a bit? So I did, and I found a job at Onto This Last in Brick Lane.
Yep.
In London. Very similar to what I was doing, but just more
Like
obviously.
the adult cushy flat version
Yeah.
of what the kids' furniture you were doing.
So I went for an interview there, and was quite impressed by my skills, that I had my own machine and things like that. So yeah, I worked there for, I don't even know, was it 8 months?
Yeah, it must have been.
And I quite liked the job, but I'm not going to say anymore. But I left that job, and I think it was living in London, and we were living in Staines, and I was having to get a train from Staines to somewhere else, then to London.
Clapham Junction to Brick Lane.
Yeah, and it was like £300 plus for my train ticket, which was crazy. It was like a lot of my paycheck.
Yeah.
And yeah, just my whole days were gone. Like, it was just traveling, working. Again, we'd never
I
get
was
to spend time
I was
with each other.
working. I remember being on a big project and working 6:30 a.m. till 6:30 at night. and you would leave before me and come back after me.
It was just...
So I was working 12 hours, commuting 20 minutes each way, 10 minutes each way because I was in Shepperton at the time. But you were still leaving before and coming back after, and you were working, what, an 8-hour day?
I know.
It's fucking bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers when you think about it.
And people do that, and I just don't know how they do it. I really don't.
Listen to this podcast on the train, that's how they do it.
And then I was thinking about leaving onto this last, and you phoned me, didn't you? You were like, how do you feel about working with metal instead of wood? I was like, I mean, I'm sure it can't be that much different if it's, like a CNC machine.
Yeah, which it was.
Yeah, and you said, well, there's possibly a job here if you want to come and work with me in the special effects department. And I was like, and Jack was like, pay's pretty good. And I was like, well.
Pay's pretty good. You can commute in with me.
Yeah.
Because I was on the same job at the time.
And it's working in film, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So I said, yep, let's do it. So I left onto this last and went to work in film. And, I learned so many skills there as well. I was running the plasma machine. I was pretty much like, I was the main operator.
You were the only operator, okay.
It was Hobbs and Shaw Hobbs and Shaw that I first did.
Hobbs and Shaw, that's right. Fast and Furious, Hobbs and Shaw.
So it was quite an experience. I was the only female on the floor, and I did Hobbs and Shaw, and then I did Fast and Furious 9.
Yes.
And then I did a bit of Jurassic Park. But throughout all of that experience, I think I was turning into a male, wasn't I? I was swearing more than you were.
That's an achievement.
But no, it was a really cool experience. But again, I decided that still wasn't for me, was it? Still.
Yeah, I just felt that you'd never answered the question, why is it so hard for independent makers to get recognised?
Yeah.
You've always been quite good, like, throughout, of not just putting something to the side.
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, well, that didn't work, leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, well, that didn't work, why? And I mean, that was, 3 years later, you came back to visit why when you started We Are Makers, but like, you've never let go of why.
Yeah.
And I feel that you'd always felt there was a reason to come back to it. Like, it was worthwhile to come back to.
Mm-hmm. But it was crazy, like, how many things I'd just jumped to and been like, nope, that's not for me, that's not for me, that's not for me. And at the time, you were doing some hobbyist leather work, weren't you? You decided... That
was my little getaway from what was a very high-pressure job in film.
Yep, and you did a few Kickstarters, which were very successful. And I said, well, I quite fancy that. Do you want me to try it for you? So I kind of took over your leather business for a while, didn't I? And again, another skill, another material.
Wood, metal, leather.
Yep, and now onto print. Anyway, so we were living down south for a while, weren't we? We were moved to several different places, different flats.
Yep.
We lived in a few different places now, and I was running Ardent Leather, which we called it. So we're both kind of doing it in and out, and building a brand, as we say.
You were definitely doing the hands-on stuff.
Yes.
Because I was obviously working.
Learning my own skills with leather work, watching YouTube videos, I suppose getting inspiration from others. And again, after about a year, I was like, I'm still having the issues I was having with my own children's furniture. Like, there's something there, it's bugging me. And it's the internet. You just get totally lost in the sea of people who are trying to just, create their own thing.
Yep.
And so when I was doing the leather work, I came to you with this project, thinking, wouldn't it be good to do, like, mind that idea we had at university where we're thinking about coming up with like a small little magazine for
the directory
of, it was university students of their projects.
Originally, the first incarnation of the idea was a directory of university student projects to help people find job and find work and find notoriety after university.
Yeah, and then it came
out. That, and it's important to mention, that original conceptualization was when we graduated, like 2015.
Yes.
We would have made an arse if we'd done it.
Yeah,
It would have been shit.
It would not have had the same standard as what
Yeah.
it has done now, and I think we started at the right time. But yeah, I came to this idea and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just like do some sort of magazine or book or something that's not on the internet? Because I'd done a wee bit of research and I couldn't really, I know there's a few craft magazines out there, but nothing that was showing the same variety of between makers and craft.
Yeah, they were all like, I think craft in itself is hyper niche,
Yeah.
so you don't have to do like a hyper niche craft within a hyper niche.
Yeah. So you were like, well, if you want to come to me with the, not business plan, but a brief of how I think we are makers. We didn't have that name at the time, but yeah, you gave me, I had what, 6 months or something
6 months.
to find printer, proofreader, the makers that I wanted to include in it, and you nearly cried at the price, didn't you?
Yeah.
You did.
I'd set aside X amount of money. So it's important to note this isn't like an employer-employee relationship. Like,
No.
I'd just said like,
I'm just like I don't know, I got all these crazy ideas and you kind of bring it down to this is what it
and
costs.
we can talk more later maybe about, you know, what I do and what my history is. But like, project planning is a big part of it. So it was a case of, I was on a big project that I knew was spanning good money for, I think it was, I had 9 months left on the project. So I knew at that point I could cover both of us for 6 months. So it was like, go and do it for 6 months. I had done a bit of research and had an idea in my head, a ballpark, as we all do, a ballpark and a budget of what I thought it should cost to produce that.
Yeah.
To get the first one out there. And I knew there was a case of cutting corners to get the first one out there, you know, to keep the price down. But you went super, super high end, straight off the bat.
As you do.
Which actually was absolutely the right decision.
So,
but I wasn't ready for it.
No, you weren't.
I wasn't ready for coming in from very stressed out, months at work, coming in every night and being like, this is going to cost this. This is going to cost this. Now, the benefit of being stressed out at work usually means that work's going really well and then there was good money coming in at the time, so it was fine.
So I think I should just sum up me, if you put it, because we've talked far too long.
No, don't keep going. This is our podcast.
I know, but I just feel like sometimes...
This is our podcast and we brought the equipment. So.
I know, but it's funny because you think, no one wants to... I'm just babbling now, but, you know, have I covered what else have I missed?
Well, you were at the start of We Are Makers.
Yeah, it was at the start of We Are Makers, and I just had this... you know, everything I've done has been to a really high standard.
Yep.
I've always kept it to that. And I felt like every project before, I've learned, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh, I failed at that, or I failed at that, or I failed at that. Gosh, am I ever going to find anything I want to do? Am I going to be good at anything? You know, I think because, you know, I've said that to you before.
Yeah, multiple times. It's pretty hard to hear as well.
But it wasn't really a failure, was it? It was more like, maybe I just wasn't ready for it at that time. You know, I had...
You may go back to furniture making later in life. I hope not. I hope we'll do We Are Makers forever. But and I do think if you went back to it now, it'd be wildly better than what it was. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was because, and the reason that I didn't mind bankrolling it for as long as we did, we didn't mind bankrolling it for as long as we did. Obviously it's a joint account. But because it answered the root question. Yeah. Like, you could go back to making furniture and kind of patch up the root issue that people don't understand, the people that are making stuff, and being like, well, I'll just make sure they understand me. Mm-hmm. And that's all well and good. They'll understand you, you'll do better out of it, but what about everybody else? Mm. Like, rising tides raise all ships.
Exactly. And like, throughout all these different projects, you know, I've been through spending an absolute fortune on trade stands. Personally, in my own experience, I don't like them, but that's just my own personal experience. I did one I'm not going to name it, but I was in between. I was in between somebody who manufactures bags overseas and some other company that manufactures overseas, and there's me in the middle, trying to fight for I make this.
Well, let's be honest. It's marketed as a handmade craft show with crafters there.
And there is some crafters there. There is some crafters.
Yeah, but it's
there.
marketed primarily as that, and it's not that.
Well, and I had people coming up to me saying, "Oh, where'd you import that from?" Or because I did like these little kids' toys. Where'd you import that from? Or I was like, I make it, and I sold like one thing. It cost me
thousands.
Yeah, it cost me about £1,000 to have my stand there. It cost I had my mum support me there. She came down and helped me. So we had
plus hotels, plus driving up and down, plus van.
But not even that. I spent so much time making all this products to be there, and I didn't really get much out of the back of it. I mean, it's nice to say, look, I've done this trade show, and you've got that behind you, but it didn't do anything for me. And I've done a few, and I'm just like, it's not for me. It's just not for me.
There may well be the right trade show at some point. There may well be a We Are Makers trade show at some point.
Maybe. There's just so many things you think I'd do better. But anyway, don't we all?
Yeah, quite.
So I'm trying to think of all the other experiences I had with small business, because I have been through a lot. What else do you think? What else have I been?
I think the big one is just like through all of that, the constant running theme is everything's surface level. Yeah. It's the 10 minutes you get to speak to someone at the trade stand. It's the 0.5 of a second as you scroll past their Instagram profile. It's the 3-4 minutes you read while you're on their website. Mm-hmm. That's the flash of their website title as you scroll Google. Yeah. It's all super surface level.
Mm-hmm. But we wanted to know the people. Like, I want to know, who are you?
I buy from people. I know there's stuff that I have bought in the past that's not as good as a mass manufactured thing, but I've bought, it's not as good as in it won't perform as well, or it's not as refined. Because some mass manufactured stuff is hyper refined, especially in some of the industries I shop in. But I've bought it from people because I buy from people, because I like people.
Yeah, and it's got a story behind it. Yeah. You know where it's come from. You know where that money's going.
You always need to consider as well as where, like you say, where the money is going. So like I'm obviously heavily involved in the bicycle industry. A lot of the bicycle industry, when you pay for a frame or a bike, or a lot of the money for that is going into their marketing budget. Like, makers don't have a marketing budget, or not one worth speaking of anyway. So the more of the money is going into the actual product. Yeah, like I spent all my time making sure like my product was as good as it could be. So I spent all my money on materials, tools, whatever that may be, to have this great product that works, looks good, and will last pretty much forever. Yep. And then obviously you have marketing budget is like non-existent. Yeah. Your marketing budget is anything that you can do for free. It's hours, it's time and hours.
And we're not all good at that part. Like we aren't good at that part. We're not good at marketing ourselves. We don't really want to get in front of the camera and do all that showbiz, if you put it. Yeah. But if I had to go back and do my kids' furniture again, I would put myself more out there. Yeah. I would say my products are there, but it's me who's doing it. This is what goes into it. And, I probably would have started a YouTube channel and like maybe done, this is how you run a machine, or this is the tools that I've bought, or, there'd be so many things that I'd do now if I had, if I knew now, I'd do it then.
But you got the confidence to do it now because of all the things you've done to get here, right?
Yes.
Like, so going back in time, that's one thing. If you took current Kate and went back in time to do it, that's a very different thing from telling past Kate to do it. Like if you went back in time and told past Kate to do it, she wouldn't have done it. Yeah. If you went back in time as Kate then you would have done it and it would have been wildly successful. But you can't do that.
No, you can't. But anyway, I think that's we should start telling your story. Yeah? So who's Jack Lenny?
Who's Jack Lenny? Fucking hell. a frustrated individual that wants to do more.
Yeah.
Always wants to do more in an unhealthy way. So I've always had a very engineering focus. I've always, like I say, my mum's dad had diggers around. I was always fascinated by them. I wasn't good at maths originally. That's probably one of the big things that people know me that think, really? I just wasn't into it. I had a crap teacher, absolute shocker of a teacher in maths. Got a fantastic tutor who quite literally forced me through it, and then found the application for maths in engineering. I've always been very driven to do more, but I've never known when more is enough, which keeps me up a lot.
Yes.
And leads to, quite frankly, a very unhealthy relationship with work, which on the outside, probably, certainly if you look at my film career, probably looks very successful.
Have you always been like that since a young child, though? Have you always had that, like, I mean, yes, I would say so, because you've always had a job since you had a job since you were 16.
14. Started working at a bike shop at 14, yeah.
Exactly, so you've always...
And I was convinced I would buy that bike shop and that would be me for life.
And you may still one day buy a bike shop, who
Yeah.
knows? But, because bike always comes up. But, I would... Since being 14, you'd have to be quite driven to have a job at 14. I mean, I just
always enjoyed working. I felt that was a purpose in life that everyone should find. Unfortunately, what work is for a lot of people is not their purpose in life. Like, I don't enjoy work because it's work, because it brings money in. Like, that's obviously a very beneficial aspect, because I'm not dull to the fact we all have bills to pay, but I enjoy it because it's the purpose of doing the thing. I enjoy doing the thing, and that's where I've been very cautious in all the jobs I've chose, is to do the thing I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So worked in a bike shop, worked in TK Maxx, done some store refits for TK Maxx at night, while also working on the shop floor, organising clothes. Anyone that shops at TK Maxx that leaves shit on the floor. Horrible people.
I remember when we were together, I remember you doing like late shifts at TK Maxx. You'd be texting me being like, oh, why am I doing this? Why? But you did have a good time.
I did have a good time, yeah. I used to get a lot of the stockroom shifts, so even as a part-timer, in the stockroom shift was like unheard of. I used to get a lot of them. I've always been quite organised. I've always been able to look at big projects and take them into really small projects. Like, this is a book that needs done. Okay, to make a book, what do you need done? X, Y, Z, A, B, C. So I think that got me quite far, working a lot of different jobs. Then, as Kate says, went through university, done Norway, loved that. A lot of metal work. That was my first real introduction to seeing the big metal monsters that when I was a kid that were diggers and all those things, and seeing like, shit, you can actually make these. Like, taught myself to MIG weld there, TIG weld there, forge there. Bend tube I remember doing for Brita. I done the big wound tube, really complex bend. And just things like that. Like, I hesitate to use the word talented, but I've always been able to take a step back and figure something out.
You're very talented.
So like her, oh thank you, her, in that example, her tube kept crushing. And I was like, okay, the tube's crushing. Why is it crushing? Because there's nothing inside it to give it positive pressure. Okay, what do we need to do? Put something inside it. So we filled it with sand, welded the ends shut, put a bolt in it to compress all the sand, and then it rolled beautifully. So I've always...
You're a problem solver.
Yeah, and I've always been quite aware of that.
You don't like people coming to you with problems.
I don't like people coming to me with problems, and I think that's because I'm unaware of how other people are not problem solvers.
Yeah.
Like, I'm very... I don't want to describe myself as ignorant, but I'm quite intolerant of that. Like, if someone's like, oh, this is a problem. Like, if someone comes to me and says, oh, this is a problem, I've tried this, this, and this to solve it, and it's still, I am your best friend for the next half hour until we solve it. But if someone's like, oh, this is a problem, I am immediately infuriated. I have a very hard time controlling many emotions, that being one of them. and that a lot of that comes from tolerance. So yeah, problem solver. Done the big motorbike at uni, like Kate mentioned,
which was quite spectacular.
with the most amazing tutor, who unfortunately is not with us anymore, who fell ill and passed last year.
Yeah, well, good
Will
old Will.
Titley, who, again, and I latched onto Will because Will had, and I've always done this, I've always latched onto people that had real life experience, that walked the walk.
Which is so important.
Aye. So like anyone that's at uni or looking maybe for a business mentor, because I've got a real rocky relationship with business mentors, like look for people that have done what you want to do. Like, it doesn't matter how high up they are. Like, they might be, reading a couple of great books now that are by people that are, last year I think he said he took home like 26 million in personal income. Like, I'm never going to take home 26, well, maybe I will, don't know. Certainly not doing We Are Makers, and I have no goals to do that. But the fact that someone's been able to do that, they clearly have good advice to do that. Now, if it was someone that was taking home £1,000 a month, I'm not going to listen to his advice. Whereas, and that's something that's really important. It's certainly really important for students because you make huge mileage when you're a student.
Yeah.
You make massive mileage. Like every week as a student is equivalent to, personally, I think a month to 2-3 months as a mature business, because you're making so many, well, if you do it right, you're making so many mistakes because you can afford to make the mistakes. It doesn't matter. Just make the mistakes.
Yeah.
And I'd say that's something as well. I've never really been worried about making a mistake.
We're very chalk and cheese, aren't we?
Oh, you worry about everything.
Yeah, we're very,
to the point where it causes arguments between us.
Yeah.
Which is not a downside on you.
Yeah.
It's again, it goes back to my intolerance.
I know.
So done this motorbike, was recommended to make a big card model of the motorbike, to take a scale card model to the motorbike, which was a shit idea.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so I couldn't afford to CNC it in aluminium, so I CNC'd it in wood and sprayed it all up, so at least it was still load bearing and it could ride, and well, it couldn't ride, you couldn't ride it on the road, but you could push it around and you could get a feel for it as a motorbike, which was really cool.
It was cool. Got
all the headstock machines so I could at least fit the bearings so that it would turn and stuff like that, and yeah, done all the...
Why don't you tell everybody that the concept of your bike, because it's...
So the concept of the bike was about solving a problem, and the problem was sustainability. I've also had an interest in anything two-wheeled, whether it's pedal bikes primarily, that was my sort of first love as a child, and then motorbikes, and to be honest, anything with wheels. Anything wheels that goes fast. Trucks, yeah. Anyone that knows me from America, they'll know I've got an unhealthy obsession with... and it doesn't even... It's not like, oh, he's a petrol head or he's a gearhead. Like, nope, electric's fucking cool.
Yeah.
I'm into that. I'm into motivation. I'm into... And I don't mean that like, oh, motivation, going to fucking ice baths and stuff. I mean motivation as in like the process of motoring forward.
Yeah.
So the concept for the bike was, to go back to Kate's question, we were asked to look at sustainability. I was always interested in bikes. One of the biggest issues with scrapping bikes is the... Is that still recording?
Mm-hmm.
No, cool. I just turned around and never seen the screen. One of the biggest issues with bikes is the amount of waste. So a lot of bikes either get front-oned or end-oned or T-boned, but the engine's a big lump of metal and it's usually totally fine. So I found a bike that had been scrapped. I think 80% of all the bikes that are scrapped still have perfectly good running gear, if I remember my dissertation right. And there's also the sustainability bit of traffic. So you can fit 3 bikes wide. I think legally you can fit 2, but you can fit 3 bikes wide in the space of a car. I even went and sat on a corner in Edinburgh and took a note of how many cars were going past with a single occupant in it. So if you think one car, if you could put 4 bikes, left, basically a bike where each seat is, and how many more vehicles are on the road, but how much less is on the road. Bikes are lighter, they require less fuel, etc., etc. So there was all these different sustainability things. So I designed a bike that could reuse all these engines. But in doing that, I wanted to take it further. Again, what's the other problem with bikes? Problem solving. The next problem with bikes is that a bike will actually do thousands of miles before you even start it, because it all gets shipped across the world. So I designed it all flat sheet. You know, Kate and I definitely, looking back on it, had a bit of a CNC fetish at the time.
Yeah, I think so.
It was all flat sheet bolt together, so you could send it to your local cut shop. They would cut it for you, no matter where you were in the world. It was all standard material. I'd done it in imperial and metric. You know, I chose all the bolts that would fit both. So yeah, now you could just cut it. So that was the concept. We were at the final year show.
New designers.
New Designers, yeah, which was a great show for us. A couple of people came asking a bunch of questions about it.
You're like, someone
Just-
says, "Oh, you might be in the running for an award," and he goes, "There's an award."
Yeah, I was
You're
totally
so
unaware of it
like-
all. I was just like, because for me it was a decompress from what was a mental year trying to build a motorbike.
And like as a student, like new designers are a really good opportunity for people to go and showcase what you have worked on so lovingly for a year, and you get to display it in front of thousands of people that come through that door.
Yep.
And it's where many people get picked up for employment, which you did. But yeah, there was certain awards, and you won the biggest award.
I won the New Designer of the Year in
Yeah.
2015, yeah.
And what did they say? Why did you win it? Just because it was really, really
Good question. I think it was.
Cool.
I think it was because one of the main reasons was because I hadn't set out to design a motorbike.
Mm-hmm.
I'd set out to solve a problem,
Yeah.
and for me that was really affirming because I'd always set out to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
I never try and find the solution and back engineer the problem. I solve the problem. So yeah, like Kate said, I got offered a job out of that. The workshop supervisor that was working for Mark Holt at the time, a guy called Dick and Mitchell, happened to be at the show looking for assistant, designer, draftsman for Wonder Woman. So 2 weeks later, we went down for the interview, and I started we went down the Friday, drove back up, he phoned me on the Saturday morning, I drove back down on the Monday.
But what did he say to you? He said, like, when he asked you for, like, do you fancy doing blowing up cars or...
Aye, his pitch was like, so hey, I design stuff and blow it up for a living. Would you like that? I was like, sounds all right, aye. Like, not going to say no to that. And I still use that line to describe what I do to people as in a sort of short and fast manner.
You got offered a few jobs. You got offered another...
Yeah, you got offered a job with Green Mech, which was they design big agricultural machinery. So again, going back to like, you know, mum's dad always having big diggers around, it wasn't dissimilar to that. There was a couple of other draftsmen. There was one for a big production line for... it's the same guy that owns HelloFresh. I think he was trying to do it with dog food at the time. And it was like designing their production line or something. I didn't know anything about designing production lines, so...
Yeah.
I don't think they do that anymore. I don't think that's a thing anymore, so I probably chose pretty well.
And I remember it was a week after we get back, we got phone calls to say, would you come down for an interview? And I'm just like, oh my goodness. So we drove down that day, and I waited in the car all day. Didn't realise it was
Yeah, it was maybe a 30-minute
long.
interview, and it was like 6 hours
Yeah, and I
of
was
driving
like,
around the set and showing me the workshop.
And then he came out and says, they've pretty much offered me the job. Like, I start in what, like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
At the time, I was like, goodness, this is, wow. It was, I think it's because we'd been together for...
Yeah, which I never appreciated at the time. Like, I was just like, oh well, this is what happens.
Yeah.
The problem is I don't have a job. The problem that needs solved is find a job. Here is job.
Yeah. So that was really exciting.
So done that, and then I've done Justice League, and then we were supposed to start The Flash. The Flash folded, so I had about 5 months off. Your dad was building a house at the time for a customer, so I helped him, so more great experience there. Again, problem to solve, no money's coming in, you still had your business, I'll just go and do that. And then an art director who I worked with on Justice League, so I was working in the special effects department, the art director's department, I worked with him a lot of stuff had happened on that Justice League job that meant I was dealing with them more, Dick and went off to pursue a robotics degree, I think. So this art director contacted me and was like, hey, there's a job coming up on Fantastic Beasts. There's a special effects supervisor. I'd love to introduce you to him. You know, we enjoyed working with you on Justice League and we'd love to see you on that team. So kind of through the houses, I got a call, or I called and left them a voicemail, and then I called Dave Watkins. And that was 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
And I've worked for Dave on and off ever since, doing contracts. I stopped working in film full time in December, just there. But since then, I started on...
Yeah, just share what movies you worked on.
Fantastic Beasts, the second one, Artemis Fowl. Oh God, now you're asking me, Kate. Artemis Fowl. I've done Black Widow, the Marvel. Done Jurassic World Dominion, the newest one. I've done Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw. I've done Haunting in Venice. I've done a little bit of consultant work on that. I've done the new Star Wars series, The Acolyte. Yeah, lots.
What was the hardest situation you had in a film where, or like what was the biggest problem you solved on a job?
Communication.
Mm-hmm.
Communication and vision is the biggest problem. So there's no project. I've been involved with Jason Linster when he was designing the big dinosaur. I helped him with bits and bobs on that. He done the majority of the design. I've designed, cars on tracks. I've designed, even my first job, I was designing the airframes and the wings for the planes in Wonder Woman. All sorts of stuff. We've done, for Black Widow, I designed this huge car that was like 700 brake horsepower and about a foot off the ground that could take 3.5 ton of machinery and a big plane on top of it, so it looked like it was flying. Designed loads of those flight simulator gimbals that you see. I get asked to do them a lot. I've designed a huge gimbal for the Marvels, the new Captain America film, which comes out soon actually. With a big cockpit on top of it, and it was like 14 metres by 8 metres and like a 25-ton cockpit on top of it. It had like a 32-ton payload. It was bonkers, but the recurring problem and issue that I have to solve, to go back to your point, Kate, is the communication of that. Mm-hmm. Because everyone seems to think, I want this, it's there. And it's not. You don't snap your fingers and it's not there. My job as a design engineer and certainly a special effects design engineer is speak to people, find out what people want, find out limitations of doing anything to make them do what they want. Those limitations then feed into the brief, build the brief out, find the space, use the space, design the kit, order all the parts for the kit, communicate how to build the kit that's been designed to the workshop, i.e. technical drawings and stuff, check all the parts have arrived, speak to workshop supervisor, James Plumridge, a very good friend of mine, a very, very good workshop supervisor. Speak to him, constantly communicate with him until thing is designed, go back to speaking to people with space while all this is happening, making sure space has not changed, making sure brief has not changed. So going back to the start and revisiting all of this, if brief and space has not changed, install said thing, test said thing. Does said thing work? Yes, said thing works. Go back to start again. Does people who set brief think that it works in the way they thought it was? Have I done a good job in communicating everything? If yes, proceed. If no, fucked it.
It's a very high pressure job.
It is brutal. It is absolutely brutal.
And by the way, everything goes in the bin afterwards.
Yeah, and everything ends up in a skip afterwards, which is brutal.
Yeah, I mean, I remember being on the film sets and just seeing everything going in a skip, and I'm like, geez, that's like all that work that somebody's done and it just goes in the bin. But for safety reasons in the UK, they have to do that. But yeah, you're going back to like it's a high pressure job, and many a times you've been like, you know, struggled quite a bit.
Oh, aye.
Like mental.
Aye, big time. Yeah. I
It's,
think, and I think that's healthy. I think that's healthy, and it's good to admit. And you know, if people do struggle, as hard as it is to admit sometimes, but it's really like even just those steps I've laid out to you, plus all the micro steps and the people management in between those steps is huge. And like I say, I work with a phenomenal workshop supervisor who deals with everything from the minute it hits him forward, and we just have sort of continual chats. But you learn to deal with people, which is great for We Are Makers, and importantly you learn to take all those steps, or what I learned and what I made a purpose of learning is taking all of those steps and working out how to re-engineer them into anything I'd done. Because ultimately it's the skills that you learn. Like if film flops, which it has, actor strike, writer strike at time of recording, you need to be able to repurpose those skills.
Yes.
So, and like Kate says, you know that it's a very high pressure job and I've struggled with it a lot. So when you came to me with the idea of We Are Makers, and what's important to mention as well is throughout We Are Makers, like as Kate says, we were living apart. So Kate had the real struggle, you were seeing it firsthand. I was seeing it through a looking glass. Like it was a very personal looking glass because I would see it, but I had like a daily marketing report. I had like a daily report of how shit it was, day in, day out. And the constant theme was, how do you tell people your story?
Yeah.
So then when we decided to do this, it was like, okay. So I think when we first sat down to talk about it was probably around this time. It was like August, September 19.
Yeah, it was.
August, September 19. I remember you had a particularly shit day at work with a particularly awkward person. And I'd had enough. Again, problem, solve problem. Don't go back.
Yeah. Was that the day that I fell down the stairs? Because I was just absolutely...
Yeah, that's a brutal and funny story. Possibly not a podcast story.
No, I'm just saying, like, that's how bad it got. Where I was
you were just knackered. You were like a zombie.
Yeah.
You were working mega hours. You were commuting.
Felt really underappreciated.
Yeah.
But I was very appreciated when I said I was leaving.
Yeah, funny that, eh?
Yeah.
Strange dynamic that usually happens, and I'm sure it's not strange to...
They only appreciate you when you're leaving.
Yeah, there's definitely a song about that. So yeah, Kate had this idea, we sat down and talked about it, and straight away I was like, yep, this is something I'm behind. Because I'd seen firsthand. So we agreed to give it 5 years. And we're 4 years in now.
And I feel like that whole backstory is so much, but it's like, I feel like We Are Makers is like this. Like even bigger, like the steps that we've taken.
Oh yeah, that first... we'll have been together 12 years in October.
Yeah.
In that first however many years, 4 years now, so that first 8 years is like the foundations. And it'd be really easy for people to think like, oh, but that's not what I'm doing now, I'm changing careers, so I'm leaving all that behind. You're not leaving all that behind. Like, get rid of those thoughts. All of that is ultimately why you can do what you're doing going forward. Like I say, like I taught myself how to re-engineer my engineering steps into business steps, because they are still steps, they are still problem solving, they are still must do X before Y before Z.
But We Are Makers was built on passion for what I did, what we did, like for other people. Like it's a problem, and we're trying to solve it in our own way. I mean, there's so many people trying to solve this problem of like, how do people get seen? How do people tell their story? And this is We Are Makers is our
stab at that.
Our stab at that. And we've done it in such a way which is our way. We've not deviated or been like tried to copy or try to. I mean, I guess at the start you kind of look at what's around, what they've done, whatever. But we've stopped doing that. We've stopped, and it's just it's the way we've wanted to do it.
And you've never, and like credit where credit's due, you've never strewn from that.
No.
You know, it'd have been so much easier to set this up as a blog or a website and work full time and just do this part time on the side and write a wee story every night or post someone's submitted stories. But like, you've got people submit stories, you filter through what is now thousands of stories to find 10 to 12 per book for the quarterly editions. We then go on, if there's stories that are like, hey, this is a wicked good story, but I feel there's more, you've got a good feel for that, we then go and interview that more. All of that then gets packaged up and sent off to proofreader, editor, copywriter does their work, comes back, gets checked by maker, goes back to proofreader, editor, copier, comes back, goes into flow, into design flow then goes from the graphic designer Tyrone, then goes back to Kitty, the proofreader, copier, check that again, comes back, gets checked by us. Any last checks by makers, you know, are they happy with what we're about to print? Have we done photo credits? Have we done X? Have we done Y? Have we done Z? Have we bought the barcode? How many times have we sent it to print like the day before?
That's a good point. I need to do the barcode for the next one.
And you forget about like the tiny details like the barcode, like we've just forgot about, so we need to order that today. And then that comes round and then you send it off to print and then you wait for 2 weeks.
And all that work, but there's always that feeling of, what have I forgotten? But anyway, going back to the start of We Are Makers, we tried to fund this thing after I slid over the quotes, being like, yeah, it's going to be a lot of money. You're like, well, I think the only way we can get this money is, I mean, it'd be too risky for us to have just put all our money. I mean, at the start, we thought it'd be too risky to put money of our own into this, so why don't we try and fund it by doing a Kickstarter? And Kickstarter's a funny one. Like, it's good for some, not some. I mean, publishing.
It's definitely not there for publishing.
It's not.
For product stuff, and like if you're doing like a titanium pen or like a bit of leather work like I did, like it does really well for that.
Yeah, and you need to spend a lot of money on your marketing for Kickstarter.
Also, let's not discredit the fact that we are way better at marketing now than we were then.
Exactly.
We've learnt a lot since then. So I'm sure if we went back to do it now, again, if current Jack and Kate went back to tell previous Jack and Kate, it wouldn't have been as good. But if current Jack and Kate went back and did it, it would have been better.
Yeah, because again, we had a small budget. We didn't have a lot to put into Kickstarter. We didn't have fancy videography, or we didn't have a product to show yet. Like, it was purely an idea. And I think that's really hard, and it's really hard right now to sell a magazine online. Like, never mind selling an idea of a magazine online. You know,
yeah, that's it. You're asking people to not even invest. It's not even for return. You're just asking people to buy your idea. Like, buy my idea, and I may or may not make it.
Exactly. So,
it's bonkers when you think about it.
It is bonkers, but unfortunately, like,
or fortunately.
Oh yeah, or fortunately, you know, back then you think, oh, shoot, like, you know, what we're going to do now, because unfortunately it was unsuccessful. We thought, we're so far into this project that to just decide not to do it at all would be, for us, we thought that would be the wrong decision. So we were looking at buying a house. We were still living down south at the time, and we thought, is this worth it to put our own money?
What's this, 2019, so 5 years of saving for a house.
Yeah. Should we just put the money in and just do it right first time? Because we were thinking, could we do the design? We knew we couldn't do the proofreading, but could we do the design? Those are things we could do, but we thought, no, if we're going to do it first time, we do it right, because first impressions count. Yeah,
a lot of that also comes from my work. When you're designing a rig for special effects, you only get one chance to make it work because the timelines are so tight. Everything is effectively a prototype.
Bear in mind, this wasn't COVID. Well, this wasn't in COVID
yet.
But at the time,
COVID was around the corner.
No, it was, but we didn't know at the time.
So yeah, you're looking at like what I know works because I have a success rate of it. Like my stack of evidence is that do it right and it will work on the day.
Yeah.
And you know, especially when you've got actors hanging from helicopters. You know, you've got helicopters hanging from cranes. You've got fucking dinosaurs banging through windows. Like, all that shit I have been involved with or been the only designer of it and known that it works because any if, buts or maybes. You just do it right. You do it to the absolute nth degree.
And as product designers, we wanted this to be a product that people can hold, touch, feel.
It's got weight.
It has got weight, and we want it to be a good representation of people that we were putting in here. And we thought, right, fine, let's pay it 10 grand, print, proofreading, design, and that number has gone up.
Considerably, yeah.
So
Print went up by 123% by between edition 2 and 3. Or 1 and 2, one of the two, I can't remember. It was fucking eye-watering though. And bearing in mind, we're talking these prices at the start, and that's without any of us taking a wage out of it. You've still not taken a wage out of it. I've still not taken a wage out of it.
No. But the people who work on this get paid, obviously.
No, the people that work on it get paid, yeah, absolutely, and they get paid their full rate.
And so we decided to just go ahead and do it. And it went off to print August 2020.
August 2020.
For release in September 2020, and this was via COVID.
Yep.
And actually, it was a very good time because people were at home, wanting to read and connect, and We Are Makers just seemed to hit the spot at the right time. And it was like, I mean, I didn't know what this thing was going to be. I mean, if you can see the first edition compared to what it is now, like this, I had no idea of how big and how thick it was going to be. It is a book. The first edition, people were saying, that's not a magazine, that's a book. And at the time I was like, did we market this wrong?
Yeah.
But anyway, I got it through, and I honestly cannot explain the feeling of having this in your hand. It was just like incredible. Like
the feeling of having edition 1 in your hand versus the feeling of your first piece of furniture sat on that. Compare.
Yeah. Does it compare?
Yeah. What are you more proud of?
I don't know. I'm probably the magazine. Yeah. For sure. The magazine, it just, I mean...
Are you more proud of edition 1 now or are you more proud of edition 1 the first day it came through?
I'm more proud of it now because I've seen how much it's done.
Yeah.
I've seen what it's done to the community. I've seen us as people, what we've done and how we've grown since edition 1.
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of
the amount of people we've been involved with and the amount of people we've met. I am not saintly. I am not tolerant by any stretch of the imagination. But I am 100 times more tolerant than I was then because I understand people better through reading their stories.
Yeah. So yeah, we got that through the door, and I've never seen so many boxes. I don't think we quite expected how many boxes.
Pallets and pallets of boxes. What was it? 14 a box, 2,500.
And we just moved into our house on the February of that year.
We didn't have furniture, but we had boxes.
We had boxes everywhere, like boxes up the hallway, under beds. And I said to Jack, I was like, is our floorboards going to take this weight?
I know, we're trying to like stack them in the house in structural places because we were in an upstairs flat, still are. So you're like putting them a box on each step, you're kind of spreading them out.
But do you know what? It was incredible. And
that was cool.
When we put them up on the website for purchase, it was like, ding, 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 ding. And I was like, Jack, my phone's going crazy. And it was like, ding, ding, ding. And it didn't stop, did it?
No.
It just did not stop. And I was like, okay, so now I actually have to package these things and send them out. And I had
goodbye dining table.
Yep. And I didn't even try to figure out postage, who posts it, who ships it, packaging, like all these sort of things you have to learn as you're going along. And the first we used DHL because we set up an account with them. A lot of it was done through the post office, so I was going to the post office. He was a great wee guy,
the DHL driver.
Yeah, he was
used
good.
to text and be like, you got anything for me to pick up today? I'll swing by. Yeah, even if it wasn't his day to pick up and he just swing by, it was brilliant.
Because I was doing so much shipping at the time. And I was going to the post office every day and it was just the best thing ever. And then we're obviously, at this point, I was like, great, I have this first one. Now I've got to do another.
Yeah. We also nailed ads on that first one.
Yeah, we did.
Facebook ads were delivering.
Yeah.
This is pre-iOS 14 update, so not to get too technical, but iOS 14 on Apple, and I believe there was an Android update as well. They've done a lot of updates to eliminate tracking. And when they eliminated the tracking, it's harder to build lookalike audiences, it's harder to do X, Y, Z. Like, you just used to boost a post and it would do well. Now, we've never really managed to crack ads since, and there is some people that have, very few, and more for higher value items. We obviously try and keep our costs very low, despite the fact that that should be 4 times the price because of what it costs us to print.
Yeah.
But if we did have it 4 times the price, the people that are in it wouldn't get noticed, so it'd be pointless to it. Yeah. So that's kind of non-negotiable for us. We set quite a few non-negotiables in the business to start, and I'm very proud to say we've stuck to all of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to a point where we're smashing money on ads, to the point where it was the max Facebook would allow us to spend a day as a small new account, and it was doing well. Like, it was doing well. I was convinced that was me. I'd be out of film, I'd be a kept man. Kate was going to sort books out for the rest of her life. But talk about, like, early wins. Like, an early win to make, so even, it's obviously taking a considerable dip, and certainly at the moment it's very difficult because I'm not working, but it's very, very difficult. But having that early win has affirmed that there's a place for this in the world.
Yes.
It's just you and I that need to get better at showing the world that this exists.
Yeah. And like, from edition 1, 2, 3, like, we've just got better and better, and like, our processes have got better. Like, we are still learning every single day. Like, the magazine itself keeps throwing curveballs at us, you know, with print costs, with just bloody Brexit. I'm not going to go into that, but, you know,
I'll go into it. We lost 70% of our custom overnight, and then had to pay $2,000 for an 11-digit number just to be able to send stuff to the EU. Then have to pay £220
a month, by the way.
A month.
Which sometimes we don't cover that through EU sales.
We've not covered that since we started. Like,
No.
it's
But
absolutely bonkers.
if we didn't pay that, then we couldn't trade properly with the EU.
And then there'd be no point in having any of the EU makers in it, because we wouldn't be able to trade with the EU. So it's, which would just be, above anything else, a shame. Like, it's a worldwide thing. So at the moment, yeah, we're paying to be in the EU. Thanks, Brexit.
Jack doesn't hold back. So what else have we learned with the magazine? I just feel there's just so much.
The first magazine, 84 makers. Much shorter stories. All self-submitted that you then went out of your way to get proofread and made awesome.
I'd just like to clarify that I know some people have said to us, like, oh, who does your photography? Because they all look the same. Well, the makers submit their own photography, whether that's they take their own pictures or they get a photographer to take their pictures, and they get permission from their photographers to use these pictures in print.
And that all gets signed off.
Yes.
Before they send it.
If we had to, I mean, you can see how many pictures are in here. If we had to employ a photographer to go around the world and take pictures.
Yeah, goodbye, we are makers. Goodbye, we are makers.
Yeah.
If we had to do that. Yeah. It doesn't happen.
Yeah, it just wouldn't. Like, this would not exist. We couldn't afford it. I mean,
now, don't get me wrong. We've talked about it often. There's
Yeah.
a time where if we can build it to a size, we would not only employ the photographers for the makers, but we would also pay the makers for their stories and their time. Like, that is what we'd love to do. But just bear with us.
Yeah, it's we want to talk numbers because it's honest, and we're trying to be transparent about this whole thing. Is that the print costs are about $5,000 per edition.
Yeah, just the print.
So we have to upfront half of that.
And that's us gone down in quantity.
Yes.
That is us went from 2,500 to 1,000.
We moved printers because they hit me with a bill for 8,600 for
1,000 copies.
You're like, this is not doable anymore.
Yeah.
So
that's £8. So for anyone listening, that's £8.60 per copy before you've paid the proofreader.
Which is over
$5,000-ish. by the time she's done it all,
Yep.
$5,000-ish.
Yep.
Before you paid the graphic designer, who does us a wicked rate. It was expensive the first time while he set it all up, but now it's about $1,000. Before Kate and I have been paid, before we put any money into ads, before we put any money into travelling, podcast, etc., which is all done very separate budget because we enjoy doing that as well. So you're talking 18, 20 quid just to produce the book.
Yeah, and we're selling it for
£5 or £6 for a back edition,
Yeah.
16 quid for a new edition. We brought the cost down because the mission is to get it out to more people, so more people understand makers.
Yeah.
So there's the numbers, right?
But I think
It's brutally expensive. It is
Yeah.
brutally expensive, and
for any indie magazine out there, like, we know how much these things cost, and the publishing sector is very expensive.
very
Like,
expensive.
But of course, I mean, you're producing something that is beautiful and it deserves to be on the paper it's printed on.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's what you're paying for. You know, you could say, you know, we've had people in the past say, £18 for a magazine, I'm not paying it. But
But it's not the TV Times.
it's not, like, it's hard to sell a magazine online because you're not smelling it, you're not feeling it, you're not seeing, you're not, like, it's hard to, you know, you're going
Communicate that.
Yeah, so this is why we're trying really hard with our stockists. We have grown and grown and grown, and this magazine's all across the world now, and we build on month, thanks to our new distributor, Ari and Ollie, who are helping us
Wicked, yeah, really
getting
good.
into loads of different shops that we wouldn't be able to do on our own.
Nope.
A lot of stockists like to work with distributors. That's just the way it goes. It's easy for them. So that's what we're working on right now, is getting it into as many shops as possible. And shops are quite liking the new quarterly model. It's easy to ship, easy to...
Yeah, talk about that. One of the big things that we went quarterly was because,
What's that?
well, we went quarterly with. So previously, as you can see, the books are much bigger, and if any have got one of the one editions 1 through 6, you'll notice the weight of them. They're nearly a kilogram in weight. So that put us into small parcel, didn't it?
Yeah.
So as a small parcel, we were paying a lot of money to ship. And I get it. Like, when you're looking at a magazine at 18 quid and then it's 9 or 10 quid to ship it to the States, you know, it's the percentage of shipping that you're nearly, you know, an extra third on top of your order.
Shipping is something that we just can't
But we don't
control.
ship it. we pay the shipping price. The shipping prices on our website are exactly as is. But going to the quarterly model has put us into a large letter. So there's a lot of things you can do, and for people that are listening to this that are asking themselves or wondering why things have changed, these are some of the reasons. So quarterly, first and foremost, was the shipping. It allows us to put it out there free to the UK. We take some of the shipping cost into consideration on the book for the EU, and a lot of the shipping cost into the consideration of the book for the US.
Yep.
So about £3 to £4 of every book goes into, every book sale goes into the shipping. Anyone that's telling you you're getting free shipping, I guarantee you're not getting free shipping. It's just built into the product price. That's a fact. So we've done that. It also, the cadence thing, didn't it? Like you say, for distributors, the cadence, if they know they're getting 4 a year rather than 2 a year, it's better for them to sell. We've noticed that certainly beats the sort of peaks and troughs
You know, you'll get
of
people
our sales flow.
who'll buy one edition, and then because it's so long till the next one, it's like they've forgotten or they've missed an edition or whatever. With 4 times a year, you can sign up to a subscription now where it automatically, you know, you get it through your letterbox.
Yep.
And you don't, you know, it means you're never missing an edition, and why would you want to miss? Why would you want to miss one?
yeah, why would you want to miss an edition of We Are Makers? Give me a good answer. But I think it furthers the mission. It allows us to get more out there. So people that have got the first edition and the new 7th edition, they'll notice as well, yes, there was more makers in the first edition, but they were more in depth than you would see on Instagram stories, but they weren't fully in depth stories.
Yeah.
Now they're much more in depth stories. So we've managed to, and it was always our plan, we managed to build enough notoriety in the space that we could do longer and longer and more in depth and
People
more
were giving
digging.
more of us their time because
There's a lot of that as well.
At the start, I mean, who was We Are Makers? Like,
Why do I give them my time?
Yeah, why would I give you my time? And like, what do you want from it? That was quite a few questions I got at the start. It's like, how much money do you want for it? And we never set out to take any money. This was purely a passion project because we were so like
just trying to answer a question.
Yeah.
So frustrated, I think, is probably the best
And we
word.
still don't take money from the makers to be in this book. This is
fully free for the makers.
Fully
It
free.
always will be.
Yeah. Because we know how expensive it is for marketing, and we know that having your story published in a printed thing where people are sitting down reading it, they're giving all their time to you and your story. It's good. I think it's good exposure for the makers, and it's done in a really nice way. Yeah. And I think we've done all right with it.
We've done all right, aye. We've done all right. I think that's a very self-deprecating Scottish way to say it. We've done all right. I'm going to lean into that more and say I think we've set out what we achieved to do.
And I feel we're only just getting started, and we have so much to learn.
So much to learn, so much still to do. But I mean, there's some great success stories have come out of it.
Yeah.
Some great success stories have come out of it. You know, we keep going back to Curly Joe at the moment. Curly Joe was featured in one of our recent editions. Edition 4, and she makes felt animals.
Felt needle.
Felt needle artistry animals, and they're hyper realistic. They're fantastic. She was doing it like part time on her dining room table, wasn't she?
And I remember when I first got in touch, I think she had about 20,000 followers on Instagram. Yeah. And
Kate's a professional doom scroller, by the way. Kate can find a needle in a haystack on Instagram.
Yeah, it's my favourite job. Now she's at like over 200k, and like earlier this year she took the plunge to give up her full-time job and fully do her craft. And she messaged us to say, I just wanted to let you know that, you know, your book inspired me, being in the book inspired me to take that next step to do this full time. And I just thought that is one of the reasons why we're doing this, is because we want people to be inspired and just to know that they can do what they love. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, you know, she is a success story for us, for sure.
Yeah, it'd be a pretty boring life if we didn't all go out there and do it with love. And I think for me, We Are Makers, that's one of the most important things about it, and what the sort of gift it's given us is the amount of people we've spoke to that are like...
I mean, look at the community we've
built. They're absolute inspirations, all the makers we get to speak to. Because they're like, I've just done it. I've just gone and done it. And I'm like, I've always considered myself as someone who'll just go and do it. Yeah. And maybe people look at me and think that, but like, I'm looking at these people, I'm like, I wish I was more like you. Like, we've been able to be surrounded by so many people like that.
And it's funny because, you know, we're not just going there to tell our story. Like, we are making friends along the way.
Oh, aye.
Selfishly, we're making friends. I mean, we literally have friends
everywhere in the world.
And it's so nice to have that connection with different people in different parts of the world. And I think that's our unique point, is that we're making these long-lasting relationships that will continue to flourish as this community of people, you know,
gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah.
And we're just talking about the magazine. Obviously, we started the podcast 8 months ago. Yeah,
7-8 months ago. I think this is podcast number 60, 59 or 60 that we're recording right now.
And I just want to say, obviously, when we started the podcast, you know, you did a lot of research on the kit that we needed to use.
Yes.
Which we spent a lot of money on. And we got the best kit as we did. We always try and...
Find the common theme. Jack and Kate do lots of research, find the best stuff, buy the best stuff.
Yeah.
Just work out how to pay for it later.
Yeah. And what was it, road stuff that we bought?
Yeah, it was all road. It's wicked good stuff as well. Like, if we had a permanent studio, we'd probably still be using it.
Probably
not now that we've been introduced to no mono, but like it would have been totally fine. Yeah. It's what most people are using. It's very, very, very high quality stuff. But we travelled.
And we're like, There's got to be something easier, and you were looking at like.
So before we talk about why there has to be something easier, why was travelling so important to us?
Traveling was so important to us because we felt that going to the maker studio would mean that they'd be a lot more comfortable in their settings. Obviously, they meant they didn't have to travel and take time out of their day. And it means that the people watching and hearing are getting a better connection with the maker, and obviously audio is better, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being in the space and with the person.
We do a couple of online ones now.
Purely because
just
there's
volume, because
yeah.
there's so many people contacting us about doing a podcast, and we're trying to give everyone a space.
And we can't travel all the way to like New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah, exactly. So, but these are all ones that we will revisit when we get there. We are still trying to do 90% of them.
Yeah, but you found Nomono. This is our new podcast kit. If nobody has seen it yet, but it's been on our podcast since we went to America.
They shipped that direct to America for us.
They did. They're called Nomono. They're a Norwegian company, and they have been the best company to work with.
It's the first time we've really worked with a company.
Yeah, it was, and it was a really exciting step for us. You contacted them on LinkedIn. You found their marketing guy, and you explained that, look, we're going to America, and we've just...
Yeah, I think I got hit with an ad on Instagram for Nomono, like sign up. It was like a lead generator. It's like sign up for the newsletter. You know, this is what we're doing. I was like, that looks really interesting. Couldn't find anything about it online, so I went on a bit of a LinkedIn deep dive.
You did, and you contacted the guy,
Stain, who's been wicked, who's been phenomenal. Who whenever we've got a Slack channel with them, they've invited us to their work Slack channel. Not a main one, obviously, like a side one.
Yeah.
And whenever we put stuff up, and we would try and help them as much as they've helped us.
Yeah, and this has been game-changing to our podcast journey. We've been able to, I mean, for anyone watching, you've got the speakers, the mics, and what do you call this?
That's the space mic, I think they call it. The whole thing's called their sound capsule. That's the space mic, which records ambient sound around the room.
Yeah.
And then the small mics record you.
Yeah.
And then it automatically uploads to their cloud, and then when you enhance it, it takes everything that the space mic has taken from the room and cancels it out off your mics, which means that you don't get any echo, you don't get any backlash, you don't get any reverb. It's so clear.
It is.
We've recorded in some cool places because of it.
Yeah, we've been in front of waterfalls, we've been in like meadery bars, we've been in really loud workshops. We've been able to podcast whilst the maker's been working.
Yep.
In all different situations, and I think you'll agree with us that the sound quality is incredible. Yeah,
you don't, like our early podcasts, we had to carry different mic stands and stuff around with us because we didn't know what the workshops were like.
Yeah, and people kept kicking them.
And I'd say people, like we were said people too. You would dink them and they would give you a thump.
Yeah, and you'd have your really uncomfortable headphones.
You need to find a socket for a start.
Yep.
So the bottom of the Nomono sound capsule is actually a battery. We only charged it twice in 35 podcasts. 35 podcasts in 36 days the first time we went to America. We only had to charge it twice. So it charges itself. You basically charge the big battery at the bottom and then it charges itself every time you put it away at night. And then obviously got a good camera from Sony and then put a battery bank on the side of that to keep us going. So,
and of course, obviously in Texas, we needed a little fan.
Aye.
Because it kept cutting out on us. But
key tip for anyone wondering about cameras overheating. You can buy a little £6 Amazon fan that you plug into your battery bank. It's got a little magnetic ring that you stick to the back of the camera, stick it on the back, doesn't overheat.
So we've
top tip.
Yeah. So we've condensed our podcast kit and all we needed was a backpack. We came to France with a backpack with this in it.
We came to France via Ryanair,
yes.
So we had a very small backpack.
Yes.
Because we didn't have the money to pay for
but like,
suitcases.
This allows us to set up anywhere at any time and to tell really great stories. So we just want to say a big thanks to Nomono, who we are looking forward to working with in the future and continue to work with because we think they're a great company, and I would highly recommend anybody to look at their kit.
Yeah, if you want an introduction directly to Nomono, give us a shout out if you're thinking about doing a podcast, because it is the easiest way to do a podcast. If you're local to us in Glasgow, I'd
Wanna check
happily
it
lend
out,
you
yeah.
one of our kits or come and see it. It's phenomenal kit, and it's allowed us to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about. Like, we've got, and I'm sure as a maker, everyone that's listening to this has got the same, like, you've got so many ideas as a maker, you just need enabled. Like, you just need someone to, like, if you want anyone on your team, if you had to employ anyone on your team, it's just like a hype man. You just need like a hype man that's like, yeah, go and do it. Like, you just need an enabler.
And do you know what I love about us though?
What?
I'm just going to say it, is whenever we've gone anywhere, people have said, I feel like I've been inspired and I feel like I'm back on my A game because I've spent some time with you. And even Natalie yesterday was like, just having this conversation, it's almost like a therapy session, isn't it? You're able to tell your story and reflect on your story, and we're trying to give you that space to do that.
And that's why I wanted to do, over and above the peaks and troughs of sales and being more out there in the world. Like, the podcast, to me, I listen, like you know, I rarely ever listen to music. I always listen to podcasts, and it's usually because it's people that I find inspiring and people that I'll then take something from, and whether I get a half hour boost out of it or a few days boost out of it, and whether I learn something from it or whether I just find something interesting out about someone. Like, podcasts, I think, are a great way to just get more from people. It's unscripted for a start, which is wicked.
Yeah,
like, how much scripted nonsense is there out in the world?
Yeah.
It's long form, which again goes back to our original mission of telling the whole story.
Yep.
And there's a little bit of a two-way voyage of discovery. Like, you find, like, again, talking selfishly about being able to podcast with people, you're finding out stuff that you're finding out as much about yourself as you are about the people you're with.
Yeah, you are.
That's a big thing. Like, from a self-improvement, I don't know how much people listening to this will be on the sort of self-improvement journey. I think everyone is to an extent. But everyone really wants to be a better person. Whether they say it out loud or not, everyone wants to be better tomorrow than they are yesterday. And without sounding like some, you know, woo-woo, better self-help podcast, like, speaking to people that you admire is a surefire way to do that.
Yes.
Surefire way to do that without putting any effort into it. Because we speak to makers and then get super hyped up.
Yeah, we do.
Like, we have some wicked good ideas in the car.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do.
Between makers. Usually when we've left an inspiring maker and we're on our way to an inspiring maker.
On the road is where we're happiest, isn't it?
Aye, for sure. Which has led to a few conversations and thoughts for the future.
And I guess I think this is an opportunity to say thanks to everybody who has purchased a book from us, because we really appreciate it.
Yep.
And thanks to the listeners who have even got to this point in the podcast. We know our podcasts are quite long, but I feel like they're worth that
well,
time.
you just couldn't cut. Think of it this way: if you're speaking to someone or listening to someone, and the conversation gets cut off,
like,
someone's like, "Oh, I need you over here," or they just stop. Like, it's just shit. There's always more to find out.
Yeah, that is.
So I think give
the
people...
longer you give somebody, the more you're going to get out.
Like,
they're going to reveal more. They're going to, and what's good about our podcast, and a few people have said it, is that they feel comfortable with us and they feel comfortable sharing things that
we are just two normal people.
We are, and we want people to know that we just are normal people trying to do a mission. We've got our own mission, we're on our own lane, and we've got so much to do in the next year.
Yeah.
So much so is that we've got 20 minutes until our next call.
What time is it?
11:10.
I've got a call at 12:30. We're in France, hour ahead. It's 11:30 UK time. We got loads of time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yep. Positive.
So basically what's happened in the last 6 months is we were contacted by a really big tool company to do a project with us.
Hopefully we'll be able to get details out of that in the next couple of months.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting, and it's a project, as some of you may know, we did a documentary last year. We released a documentary, An Honest Representation of the Modern Maker. We spent...
It's up on YouTube. For anyone that's not watched it, go watch it. It'll
free.
be the best hour and 6 minutes of your life. I guarantee it.
It was such a fun project. We worked with a fantastic videographer, Danny Bonner, and Guy Satchwell on sound. We had a great time filming it.
Oh man, if we could do that full time, we'd be very happy.
So this project's come along, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. So hopefully we could share more about it on our Instagram in the coming months.
Yep.
It's a project that's happening next month.
It's happening now.
It's
the actual
happening
shoot
now.
for it. Well, the first. So we've been approved for 3 pilot episodes. We've got 2 of them down with one maker, very maker focused, sponsored by a tool company, huge tool company, fantastic tool company that really have the maker's interest at heart, I believe. So we've got the first 2 of 3 agreed and started. Third one will come early next year, and then hopefully there'll be 18 to 20 of them.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
And it's great because we've negotiated that the makers are paid for their time. Everyone's paid for their time. You know, we've really managed to use the platform we've got that's been given to us by the people that have bought the books. Like, ultimately, that's what's given us it. We've managed to leverage that as an authority in this space, which has meant we can now get makers paid.
Yeah.
Like, whether it's so they'll be getting paid time and a half for each day that they spend filming with us based on their workshop day. Like, it's good. It's a good time.
And it's funny how they found us, because we were in America at the time, and I got an email through, and I was like, I have no idea who this brand is. I mean, and I now know who it is, but I wasn't,
you didn't at the time,
I wasn't in the space yet. And Jack was like, that's such and such. And I'm like, oh. And Jack's like, is this a joke?
I thought it was a spam. So I know the company because I've been involved in big industrial projects for a long time. For all my working career, really. And that's how I know the company, because they exist primarily in that space and are the go-to in that space.
Yeah. And we thought, oh well, let's take the call and see where it goes. And he had found us through our magazine. A maker had posted it on their grid, and he's like, oh, who is this We Are Makers? And basically he wanted us to use our community, for us to reach out to our community to see how we could work together, them, us, and the maker. And over the past few months, we've been working this project out. It's exciting. It's where we see We Are Makers, another part of We Are Makers going.
Branch, yeah.
We feel kind of...
And really, that's like, and when we talked about numbers earlier, didn't we? We talked about the extortionate costs of making a magazine. Now, those costs do come down considerably as you scale your numbers. You know, if we got to 10,000 copies printed every quarter, we would probably be able to take a wage out of that at that point. But working with these brands and working with these sponsors is really where you and I can make money.
Yes.
Like where you and I can actually start to take a wage out of it. Because currently, since December, we've been living off savings.
Yeah.
We took the plunge. Film was quieting down, so I took that as a chance. And then obviously this is actually longer than we planned on taking the chance with the strike, which obviously causes concerns, but
we've taken that challenge, and obviously over the past 4 years we've built this trust and credibility by doing everything ourselves, that other businesses are now seeing that benefit and collaborating with us in this space to further the mission of the makers, because ultimately that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these makers, we're trying to be the voice for the makers, right?
Aye.
And we're able to now, we have provided so much value already, but by getting other bigger brands on board with us gives us that bigger voice, doesn't it?
And I mean, it can sound quite grandiose, like we are going to be the voice for the makers, and that's kind of twofold. There's plenty of makers that have their own voice, of course they do, but it's always better to hear from someone else that someone's the real deal than to hear from you yourself.
Like you said, rising
tides raise all ships. And there's also a whole amount of makers, like probably the bigger portion of makers that don't want to talk about themselves. They just want to be in their lane, make their stuff, but they need to make a living too. So we don't mean be voice for makers in some sort of grandiose sense. We mean be voice for makers in like an honest sense, and like we've been there, we've done it. I say we. Kate's been there, Kate's done it. I've witnessed it firsthand. I know how important it is. And that's really the goal.
And it's only I would say in the last, I think like Edition 6 podcasts, I think We Are Makers is taking that up.
I think that America trip was a good uptick for us. We obviously pumped a chunk of savings into that.
And when I say we're doing good, as in like financial wise, it's not financial.
It's not financially good, not yet.
It's growing that brand that people recognise and want to be, involved with. We're trying to create a community of people.
Mm-hmm.
And even being here in France, the reason we're here in France is because we want to do a makers retreat. We did one reel yesterday showing what we wanted to do, and I'm not kidding.
Day 4 yesterday, yeah.
Like, we could not sleep that night because
I was up till midnight answering people's DMs.
We said, reach out if you fancy getting involved with this makers retreat. And I mean, we thought it might be somewhat popular, but we're now 110 plus people who want to come on this makers retreat.
There's over 110 people for a place that has room for 2 6-person weeks.
I mean, I think we're going to have to do a We Are Makers festival, but anyway, it's like, it's people are yearning for this community. They're yearning to connect, with other people. And
like-minded people are not easy to come by in this world.
No.
They are not easy to come by. People that go against the grain, that do the thing that, open close quotations, does not make sense. Like, that's a bit cliche and a bit daft to say, but there's so many people that will tell you, it doesn't make sense what you're doing, or it doesn't, or why are you doing that? Like, those people can stay in their lane. You can do whatever you want to do. It'll be fine.
Yeah, so I think
we've still got loads to talk about. But that's kind of the gist of certainly the retreats, the podcast, the working with these big brands that want to support makers, I think, is where we make our money. Like, that's where we'll be able to take a wage from it.
Yeah. The
next magazine will be open to ads. Only full page ads at the start and the end, so the reading experience will not be interrupted.
But we're only working with brands that we know that we trust, we've worked with, we feel it'll be beneficial to the people who are reading it. And
it's not like your usual magazine that's got like a watch ad in the front of it or something like that. That's not what makers are interested in. It'll be like a tool ad, or there's a wicked cool company I found that do amazing makers workbenches of all sides, from jewellers to carpenters, all sorts. I'd love to get them involved. The podcast kit, they want to support us further. There's a packaging company, Ibis UK, who have been huge supporters over the last 6 to 9 months of everything we've done. They want to take out an ad. Things that are really valuable to makers.
And we really appreciate their support because, as you know, costs are going up here, there and everywhere. And for us to continue to do this, we can't rely on magazine sales. We have to reach out for help. Yeah, it is help.
It is help. All of it's help.
But it's beneficial to everybody involved. So this is why I've said this before, I hope you don't go down the ads route, but it's one of those business decisions you just have to make. And
it's really simple. Would you rather have a copy of We Are Makers with an ad in the front and an ad in the back, or a double sprayed ad in the front, your reading experience, or not? Your reading experience is uninterrupted, but you have an ad in the front and an ad in the back. Or would you rather the other option where you didn't have We Are Makers at all? Or option 3 where we have to charge £60 per copy.
Yeah.
So, unless someone who's really opposed to ads can sell, I think the break-even point's about 8,500 copies. If one person can come to us and sell 8,500 copies, you'll get a job for a start. You'll get eternal thank yous. You get foot rubs, whatever you want. But unless someone can do that, this doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, but working with on-brand companies works.
Yeah, it does.
Not only does it work in the fact that We Are Makers can continue to exist at the same cost and continue to exist in the same capacity, if not more, or if not a bigger capacity, bigger reach, more recognition for the makers involved, more recognition for past, previous, present, future makers.
Yeah.
All of that is really where it has to be.
It has to be. And I know there was 2 people that asked, or you put on Instagram,
Yeah, there's a couple of questions on Instagram.
Yeah, one of them is,
Looks like there's quite a few questions on this.
How much would I'll let you do it.
Can you not say that one?
No, I'm not going to embarrass
One of the questions, how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Well, a woodchuck would chuck as much wood as a woodchuck could chuck wood, if it could chuck wood. So that's that one answered.
Thanks, Scott.
Scott's clearly not doing enough work on his house renovation if he's sitting on Instagram, so no wonder it's not finished yet, Scott. Greatest leap you've done that's been the biggest... Let me start that again, because I read that like an idiot. Greatest leap you've done... That's just really badly written, Scott. Greatest leap you've done that's been the biggest success.
What do you think?
The greatest leap, in my opinion, and the greatest leap for anybody, is just start. Because there is no single big success. Because like we've had days where we've been like, featured by the BBC the other day where sales went really big for a day. Right? There's no big success that's like life-changing forevermore. There will be successes that change the game for you for months, weeks, allow you the cash flow to then build and build and build. But the real big success is just starting. Because if you haven't started, you can't do shit all.
And that's what we did. The biggest leap was taking that money out of our savings and printing the publication.
Yeah, delaying the house buy for 18 months to get started. The Mill France asked, do you set 1, 2, 5 and 10 year goals?
Well, we set 5 years goal, didn't we?
We didn't set a 1 or 2.
No, we didn't. We didn't set 1 or 2. We set 5 because I believe that you need to give it more than 1 or 2 years. Yep. You need to. Like, you're not even started in the second year. Not even started in the third year.
Nope.
Like, I feel we're just starting now. Yeah. And this is it says in my LinkedIn, 4 years and 2 months right now.
Yeah.
And we're not, like you said, 5 years. And like, if we're not making money, if we're not being able to take a salary by the 5th year, then we should reconsider.
5 years was for the business to be sustainable.
Yes.
Like for us to be looking at taking a salary.
Yes.
We didn't have to be taking it, but to be looking at taking a salary by the first 5 years. This is a long game. Like this is a long game. This
isn't 1 to 2, 3 years. This is 10 years plus.
The Mill France again. Please tell us about how many makers you have seen take the leap to full-time making.
It's hard to gauge because I don't get a huge amount of feedback yet.
No.
I think it's still early days. Like it really is for a lot of people that are in our magazine. They're still on their 5 to 10 year journey. Yeah. Obviously we spoke about Curly Joe.
Yeah.
But if there is any makers who listen to our podcast that have been featured in our book and have got any business or even, I don't know, changed the route that they were taking or anything, like please do get in touch because, you know, we want to hear it because we want to hear that what we're doing is working.
And you know, in contradiction to that, I think one of the other things that I would ask is, so I do the members area, the digital members area. We have a digital members area where all the stories are broken, all the books are broken down into individual stories, and I upload 3 to 5 every week. Yep. Every single week. And I go back to a lot of earlier editions, and it's few and far between, but it's brutal when it comes on, where you see people have just disappeared. Like their business just doesn't exist anymore.
There's a few in the first edition.
Yeah, quite a few in the first edition, which was obviously 3 years ago now. 3.5 years ago now. So I'd say the only thing before, and it needs to be your decision, whether you jack it or stay at it. You know, it needs to be your decision, wholly your decision. Don't do it without reaching out to people, because someone might tell you something that changes the game for you. Mm-hmm. Don't make that decision alone. Like, yes, it's your decision to make alone, 100%, but don't make that decision alone. Yeah. Reach out to other makers, reach out to us. Most people that DM me end up with my phone number. Like, I think my phone number might be on the website. Just phone me or text me, it's easier. I'm always on my phone anyway. So, I want to make a point less of the people taking the leap, but more of the backside of that, people regressing and walking away from it. Look, and as I say, it's ultimately the maker's decision to make. If that's the decision you're making, go with it. Full support. if you're even remotely questioning it, or if you're questioning the fact that, oh, I can't make this work, like, you can't make that work, but speak to someone who might be able to help you make it work. Whether that's us, we have an audience now, whether that's us, whether that's, you know, a marketer, whether you can negotiate like someone doing your marketing for a royalty fee, whether that, like, whatever that is, find the holes, because the holes are probably not in your making. It's very rare that I've seen someone as a maker. In fact, I can't think of any where I've seen someone as a maker where the product is not good. For the make, and there will be some out there, of course there will be, but certainly for the calibre of makers that we are surrounded by, where their product is not good and would not sell. Some of the most bizarre things in the world sell, but people can't market it and people can't get it out there. So don't walk away from something that might literally just be like one thing away. Like, can you imagine, like, even before the BBC article, like, that obviously returned good sales. Can you imagine we shut that down? The sales from that day will keep us going this month. Can you imagine we shut down We Are Makers the day before that?
I know.
And that's 1 month we couldn't have existed for. And in that 1 month, what could we now achieve? We've come to this. We've announced that we're going to do a retreat because we've seen this place. The retreat seems to be super popular. That might be a whole other thing that We Are Makers does because of that.
Yeah, and which we're trying to get some funding and sponsorship for to be allowed to do this.
Yeah. Ideally, we want to do it without the makers having to pay anything. I don't want people to try and come and relax somewhere but have the financial burden of that. Another question here from the audience. What do you do when you disagree on something? Do you have conflict resolution strategies?
Is that between us?
Yeah, what do we do if we don't agree on something?
What do we do when we don't agree on something? Have a wee shout and then decide that that's the wrong decision to do? That we are actually husband and wife and we should appreciate each other's opinion? Yeah,
usually have a good old argument about it and then get through it. And arguments are healthy because usually, I don't think any of us have ever been fully right or fully wrong. Usually there's like something I'm not seeing in what you're seeing and something you're not seeing in what I'm seeing. So it's a well-rounded
And then
decision.
Sometimes you're like, okay, we don't have to make this decision now. Maybe we go away and think about it and then come back with other ideas, or like, you know, this business can be quite intense.
Very intense.
And, you know,
it's like for all the big projects I've worked on and been involved with, this is the most taxing thing project-wise I've been involved with.
There's some days,
because there's no end to it.
No, some days you're just like, we have so many ideas that if somebody just offered us $100,000,
yeah, anyone listening to this got $100,000.
I mean, we'd get a media guy on, which we already.
The crazy
have.
thing about that is we went through that list of like, what would you do for $100,000, and it wasn't take a wage out of it. Like what would you do with that $100,000? And Kate and I still hadn't decided to take a wage from it. Like there's so much areas for improvement.
I think it gives us so much more than a wage, though. Like
it gives us way more than a wage.
If we could just make enough to cover ourselves, so that's just to live.
Yeah.
And this gives us so many experiences. Like, you know, we've talked to so many brilliant people. We're connecting with so many great people, working with great people. You know, like we have a line of things that we want to do, and even the other day we were talking to a media guy who would love to come and do like a run and gun, you know, like even being here, having someone behind us taking that journey, and you guys being able to come on that journey with us.
A lot of great makers have invited us to go and do their courses, like their chair making course in Waco, Texas, or Juju Books in Glasgow, the book binding course. Like a lot of great makers have invited us to do that stuff, but we're not ready to do it yet because we want to document it when we do it so more people can see.
Yeah, and appreciate what goes into making said thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just getting started now, and I feel that the next year is going to be busy. And obviously we've talked about a newsletter, which is something that we really want to do, but it might need to take a little bit of a backseat just while we navigate through the quarterly edition. Our podcast, I think having too many ideas dilutes
the good ones.
The good ones. And
yeah, you made a good point about this the other day. That's definitely worth sharing, because I don't really have a limit. Like I'm just like, well, I obviously do have a limit, but I don't think I have a limit. I'm not very cognizant of my limit. So I would just be like, yep, do it all. And I would, and it's changing now, but I would, to some degree, rather do more and, throw shit and shit will eventually stick than craft something really, really quality.
Yeah.
Which is maybe contradictory to a lot of the things I do, but for some reason it seems to... I think it's because we're so uncertain at the moment in this business.
Yeah.
But I think it's worth you sharing the concentration for the next year, because ultimately it was you that sat down in the car the other day and was like, we need to do this, and this, no more.
Yeah. I think, I've been listening to a few podcasts. I've never really been a podcast person. I like my music. Really, I like my music. But since doing podcasts, I thought I really need to up my game and start listening to podcasts. Yeah. So I've been listening to a lot of like personal branding and, ultimately We Are Makers is us, like that is our baby. It's like, this is our mission. And he was talking about, you can have too many things going on at the one time that, how could you make all those things great? Mm. I think you need to just concentrate on for example, he was talking about that Amazon, for example, they started off with books. Look at what they're doing now. Yeah. But they only concentrated on the books.
They just sold books.
And that's how they got good.
Until they got really good.
Or that Gary guy.
Gary V.
He started on YouTube, all on YouTube.
Only doing wine on YouTube.
Exactly, the one thing, and they focused on that one thing. We have got the magazine. That is what we said. That's what we started with. And yes, we're going on to podcasts, which is equally just as great. So we need to concentrate on the two good things that are going to allow us to do other things. Yeah,
we started on stories. Yes. We started telling maker stories. Yeah. And that's what we need to concentrate on, whether that's podcast or whether that's in book.
Yeah, and obviously the retreat is something that we're almost giving as a give back to the community.
Yeah.
Because being able to come and reset, connect, be creative in some respect would be...
Just be surrounded by like-minded people.
I think having that and then going back to do your craft, you'll just be like, right, I'm ready for the next year, or I'm ready for the next 6 months, or I have a certain amount of goals that this week has allowed me to take a step back and think, right, I'm just going to concentrate on these one or two things. So that's my say. That's what
I think so. Yeah, so moving forward into next year, we'll round up the podcast pretty soon.
Because it's...
we'll maybe do another one in 4 years' time.
Yeah.
We're going to concentrate on the book, on the podcast.
Yep.
And there will be a makers retreat.
Next year. Whatever that takes, I think we've managed to do what we've said we're going to do.
We're concentrating on makers' stories.
Yes.
And that's all we're concentrating on right now. There is a world where, of course, we want to build it big enough that the general population see it. And there's a load of idea for content for that. But we need, for the general population to see it, we need it to become so big in the maker's niche that then it bleeds out into the general population. Because I'm a firm believer what my interest was in starting this was educating the general population that there is a better way to buy and there is better things to support. Just go down to your local furniture store and buy whatever looks good or whatever feels good. Like, there is people that will make you the exact right thing. You don't have to go to insert big brand name furniture store here. You can go to the independent person, probably spend just as much, maybe more, but you will get something for life. And that's always been a sort of end goal, like a high level, high tier goal. But in order to do that, I still think we are makers.
Still got a lot of work to do.
Almost hit its market cap in this maker's niche. Like, it needs to bleed out of the maker's niche. Mm-hmm. And to do that, makers need to share it, we need to share it more. A lot of the onus is on us. We need to get it out there more. Get it out there everywhere. It's like, if you put a cup inside a bowl, fill the cup with water. When the cup's filled, it'll spill over into the bowl. The bowl is the general consumer. The cup is the maker's niche. We need to fill the cup up.
Fancy. Love
so that's kind of where we are. That's our
story. I think we've started from the pretty start of this podcast, and if you're still here listening to it, well, thanks.
Yeah, thanks very much. We will do more of these, I think.
It's been nice. I have enjoyed it. I have to say, we've been putting it off for a long time, and before I was thinking, I'm quite nervous about sitting and just chatting to the camera. I mean, it's, I can see why it's difficult.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
what have you got from it?
I've got to get everything out. Like I've been able to say everything that you cannot say in an Instagram reel, you cannot get across in a blog. Yeah. And I think this is why podcasts are great. Yeah. And if anyone's taken anything from this, do let us know.
Yeah, let us know if you want us to do another one. Maybe we could do more of a question and answer one on a more recurring theme.
Yeah.
Shorter one that's just question and answers. Save a bunch of questions. Actually, there was 2 or 3 more questions on Instagram from a previous story, but they didn't save because they only stay up for a certain amount of time. I thought I'd screenshot them because I'm an idiot.
No.
So I apologise to the people who did ask. So ask them again, and I think we'll do more of these for sure.
Yeah, and thanks to everybody again for supporting us. We really appreciate it. We see you, we really do. Like I can see the same names coming back and forth, buying a magazine, watching the podcast, sharing. Like it makes our day. It really does when someone shares, because it's all about sharing, isn't it?
It is all about sharing. Yep. Don't think that when you share someone else's work, no matter how similar or dissimilar it is to yours, that you're taking business away from yourself, because you're not. You're enforcing the scaffolding below you. You're
Gosh, another good one.
Everything around you. Every time you share someone else's work, and every time someone that's then going to promote them to share your work, and it's just a huge big network, and it's N+1 every time.
So if you want to buy a magazine,
let's actually do an ad for a magazine in our podcast.
We've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8's coming out in November.
1 is totally sold out.
Yep. And sorry, I can't get a reprint because it would just cost too much.
And we're not doing it. You missed out.
We also have our documentary book as well, photo book, which we did, which is really nice.
So go watch the documentary if you want an hour and
We'll put the link.
Of amazing entertainment from 3 amazing maker studios, 4 makers in total. Sam and Rich at the Marksman Workshop, Cecilia Stamp Jewellery, and Ara Textiles, all fantastic makers who are just an absolute joy to work with. We do plan on doing more of them. If you want to get your hands on the book, wearemakers.shop. Despite the fact that the back editions are cheaper, you will pay more in postage. So you may be cheaper just setting us up a subscription to the newest one, depending on where you are in the world, because you won't pay postage. So not only will you help support us more by setting up a subscription, the more subscriptions we get, the more we can print. That's just the reality of it, because we know we've got those sold beforehand. You'll support the mission a lot more. And that is it. Did we have a digital members area?
If you don't want to buy the printed copy.
You know, a lot of people, postage is inherently expensive. Some people like reading from their devices. Some people like reading from their phone or their tablet. And there's a digital members area specifically for that. It's £4 a month or whatever your local currency is. So it is...
it's not the full books, it's just stories you put up.
Individual stories, and they'll go up as and when. Do not text me and ask me to put up a specific story on it, because that's not how it works. Or message me or DM me. It will go up when it goes up. If you want a specific story, buy a book. Buy a book and take some time to switch off. And if you know any makers, if you're listening to this, you're not a maker, you want to be a maker, you know any maker, promote your stuff. Put it out there into the world. Everyone has an audience.
Yeah.
Every single person has an audience, big or small. Use that audience to push other people's stuff out there.
And don't always look at follows.
Yeah, don't look at followers, because I've seen a really interesting screenshot the other day from a huge account who had, it was over 1 million, so it's like considerably more than us. I think we're sitting at 31,000 at the moment. And their monthly engagement was the exact same as ours. So just because someone has a massive following or a very small following, like, it's engagement that counts. If you're a maker and you're trying to grow that following, grow the engagement.
That's where your worth is.
Yeah.
Is people are engaged with your content, and that's what they want to see. So that would be our last little tip of the day.
Yep.
But let's go. We've got a call to do. Thanks again.
Next interesting thing to move on to.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, Kate. That was great.
Yeah, good job.
Oh, wait.
What?
You can't finish.
How?
What would you tell your younger self?
Oh, shoot. I thought I was getting away with that one. What advice would I give my younger self? Trust myself more. Trust in my ability more, because it's there. That's mine. What's yours?
What's mine? Enjoy yourself more.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself more and credit yourself for all the things that you do.
Right. Nice one, Jack.
Never mind.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.